The Rainbow Tower. Written by Alex Tymms. Illustrated by R H Stewart. Episode 31. Orange. Dim lights illuminated the chamber at the sound of Swenson's voice. Jed gasped. He was facing a man with a shaven head and milky white eyes the same as those of the enforcers. His bare chest was covered in slim tubes, one of which was bile-coloured, their ends buried under his skin. His lower half was clamped in twisted bone. In the split second that Jed's attention was on this horrific sight, Swenson made his move. He dived away from Jed, cannoning into Graham and Clarice, knocking them both off their feet. Swenson ran, his face contorted with effort as he sprinted for the corridor. Jed began to call out in anger and frustration, only to stop and stare, amazed. Just before Swenson reached the back of the room and the exit to the corridor, he tripped forward and hit the floor, hard. Jed dived on him before the man could struggle to his feet. He landed on Swenson, dragging the man over onto his back, and beside him, a smug-looking Katie stepped out of the shadows. "He should look where he's going," she said. Swenson tried to squirm free, but Jed wasn't going to let that happen again. "Stay right where you are," he hissed, his hand millimetres away from the man's face. "If I didn't need you to open up Yellow, I'd finish you now." "Who said we need him alive?" Graham said, rising to his feet. "A dead chief executive could deliver just as strong a message." Jed stared down at Swenson. He wondered what it would feel like to rub his hand all over Swenson's face. Maybe Graham was right. Maybe they didn't need this monster alive. Jed tensed his arm. "No!" He stopped. It was a man's voice, but not Swenson or Graham. "No," the voice said more quietly. Jed looked up. The man in the bone was looking down at him, his milky white eyes slowly clearing. Jed realised that under the covering they were the same colour as his own. "I will not have that man hurt any more of my family, even in death." Jed stared at the man. "Then he was telling the truth?" "Yes." Jed looked at the man, then down at Swenson. "You did this to my father?" "I didn't do anything," Swenson replied, keeping a wary eye on Jed's hand. "He chose this for himself." "Liar!" Jed's father's torso shook as he tried to pull himself free, but he was too well secured. "Am I?" Swenson asked, looking at the man, then turning his attention to Jed, who was still sitting on his chest. "I knew I could control the people inside the tower. I have a gift for that. But once I learned this building's secret, I knew this wouldn't be enough. I knew I could never be truly in command until I could control the tower itself," he smiled. "And your father kindly agreed to do this for me." "No, I didn't, not this." But Jed could hear the pleading, uncertain tone in the man's croaky voice. "Without his help," Swenson carefully went on, eyeing the glistening fingers still held in front of his face, "I would never have known how to connect the nutrients or where to run the lines. Without his help, I could never have voted your mother off the board. It was only once the directors saw the power that I wielded that it became no contest. Without his help, I wouldn't be chief executive." "That's not what happened!" Jed's father sounded as if he was in pain. "Isn't it?" Swenson asked. Despite being flat on the floor, much of his old confidence had returned. He was still in control, even from down there. "Shut up!" Jed barked. First his mother, now his father. It couldn't be true. "Jed, listen to me." It was his father. "Yes, I had a choice. And yes, I made the wrong one. Instead of seeing what I had, a successful wife, a beautiful baby, I threw it all away for the promise of power. I was told I would have a say, not just over the life of one boy, but over the lives of everyone in the tower. I would be more successful than my partner, have my own glory instead of living in what reflected from her. He paused. But I didn't know the cost. For me, for your mother, for you. Jed's father hung his head, while Jed himself looked down at Swenson and laughed. Swenson's newly restored confidence evaporated from his face, and Jed's father looked up, his tortured expression showing how he didn't understand what was going on. You don't get it, do you? Jed said to Swenson. You don't control the tower, he went on. I've felt its heart. This building isn't mean or devious. It wants the best for everyone inside. It's not cold and evil like you. From the bottom of violet to the roof of red, this tower is trying to do what it was designed to, despite your best efforts. You may think you control it, but you don't. Jed stood up. Let's get this failure to do something worthwhile with his life, shall we? Graham dragged Swenson upright as Jed crossed to his father. Have you been looking out for me? Jed's father nodded slowly. As he did so, the various tubes around him rattled. We, that is, the tower and I, have been looking out for you for some time, ever since I started to break the conditioning. Then it was you who showed me the valve in the heart room and saved me in the boardroom. Jed's father nodded again. And you've been helping the builders too, Jed went on, giving them water when Swenson tried to starve them out. His father frowned at this. Then suddenly he too laughed, a rough, unpractised sound, but one that made his eyes gleam. He turned to Swenson. Ha ha! Jed's right. The tower isn't controlled by you. It's been helping others on its own. I'd no idea about the builders. Just then, the sounds of shouts and pounding feet rang down the corridor. It was the sound of executives goading enforcers to hurry. They must have got past the ones we left behind, Graham said. Then we'd better go, Clarice added. Where did you say the stairs were? No, Jed replied. I'm not going anywhere without my father. The sounds of pursuit grew louder as they all looked at the solid bone buttresses holding the man in place. Thank you very much for listening to The Rainbow Tower. To see more of R H Stewart's excellent artwork, you'll find him on Instagram at roy.hootson.stewart. For Alex Tymms, why not try the novel OutCaste at ao3.com? Or, for something completely different, check out the Amier series on YouTube or at amier.com, also by Alex Tymms. The Rainbow Tower. Text copyright Alex Tymms. Illustrations copyright R H Stewart. The right of Alex Tymms and R H Stewart to be identified as the author and illustrator of this work has been asserted in accordance with the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988.